Okay, so I'm here today with Mike Reinold. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me again, and always a pleasure to join you guys. It's always a pleasure. You guys do a great job, so I'm happy to be involved.
Great, thank you very much. And now we've known each other for quite some time, and we've talked before on other things. So, but we've still never met. We've only ever met on the video. So it's nice to see you again. Hopefully, I am hoping to meet you in person one day soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to get over there too. I'm in that early phase of fatherhood where the kids are young and take priority, and I don't know if I want to fly around with them at this point just yet. But I'll get there. So, but yeah, if you're ever in Boston, one of those EPTA conferences always end up in Boston or something. We'll have to hook
Yeah,
up.
for sure. Now, so I know a little bit about you, but maybe perhaps just for others that are listening that haven't met you before, would you just introduce yourself to them a little bit about who you are and what you get up to?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm Mike Reinold. I like that. I have a physical therapy center and a performance center and a gym in Boston, Massachusetts called Champion PT and Performance. I've had an educational website now for almost a decade.com. There I've used that as like my outreach, I guess, or my platform to just kind of share what my mind's thinking and doing and changing over the years. I've always been big into research and education, so using the online forum and that matter has been pretty good. But it's essentially it's sharing some of the new stuff that we're doing at Champion with the world, really. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we're doing. We just started a new podcast called the Ask Mike Reinold Show, which, by the way, I hate. I totally hate that name. It's part of the process of the business, I guess, where you got to go with the personal branding thing. But we had like 5 different names, and my consultants kept telling me to just go with the Ask Mike Reinold Show. So thanks, Gary V. And essentially, we're doing a podcast where you get to essentially hang out with us at Champion and just ask myself and Lenny McCreena and Dave Tilley and all our strength coaches some questions, and we're having a blast. So it's been fun. We like sharing. So
Yeah.
I guess that.
And just before I hooked up with you here on the video, I was just looking at your Ask Mike Reinold show, which is the name of which I like, by the way. And
Thank you.
it's great. I love it. And what I really like about you and what you do is the sharing of knowledge that you do. It's been amazing. And I know I've been aware of all you've been doing from when you started online, and the way you've grown and what you're sharing is absolutely great. And it's brilliant to be able to tap into your knowledge and of your colleagues at your clinic and things. And just for those who didn't hear, I think the video might have stalled, but it's mikereinold.com, isn't it, your website?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that's from there. That's the hub. I mean, a bunch of great programs online and the podcast and YouTube channel stuff. There's a bunch of great stuff, but that's the hub where you kind of get everything. And I appreciate it. We're proud that we feel like our educational is sincere.
Yeah.
We're not. I think that's the term I would use that we're proud of. We're like sincerely sharing what the heck we're doing today.
Yeah. And
Versus like.
Yeah, the other thing about what you share is that it's really easy to apply it clinically, the things that you do share, because you're using this stuff all the time with your patients. You're practicing, and you do a really good job at sharing things that people are able to take away and immediately apply into their practice, which I really like as well. But
yeah, thanks.
What I want to talk
I appreciate.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
What I'd really like to talk to you about today is because a lot of what you're doing is sort of performance work, and I know you work a lot with athletes. I know you've worked with sports teams in the past. So I'd really like to talk to you a little bit about sports physiotherapy and how people can get into that sort of thing and what they need to know to be a really good sports physiotherapist. So perhaps you could start with your story and how you got into the sort of sports side of things, because obviously physiotherapy is very different all around the world, and I know we have listeners or watchers of these interviews from all over the world, so physiotherapy can be really different. So there are, people can work with neuro patients, or people might be in Africa dealing with everybody and that sort of thing. But if we think about just sports physiotherapy, how did you become to specialize in that sort of line of work?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, physio is huge, right? There's so many different avenues you go down and different niches you can do to specialize your skill set. Sports is one of them, and sports I think is slightly different than orthopedic. It's not quite the same because it's a more of that sports medicine approach where, yeah, I feel like orthopedic, we're trying to rehab injuries and those types of things, but sports medicine, we're trying to rehab injuries and get them on the field as fast as possible, so as safely and efficiently as possible. And I think that's a little different because it's the way you manage that in sports medicine is a little different. So in the past, I was with the Boston Red Sox, which is a baseball team here in the States. I grew up in Boston and all that fun stuff. So for me, I kind of got my dream job. And if you think of it, there's one job. It's almost like I was, if I wanted to be president of the United States, right? I was lucky to get that one job that I actually want. So it was weird. Right? I got that one job. So everybody says they want to get into sports. Sports is so hard to get into when you're looking for that one job that exists, and there's a million people that want that job. It's super hard to get that one job. So I got lucky, but there's luck involved with everything. But anytime you talk about luck, it's also about, did you put yourself in the best position to succeed? So, my story was, essentially when I was in college, this was like before the internet, I sought out, I said, okay, what do I want to do? I want to do sports physical therapy. I technically like baseball, so I wanted to specialize in that too, but sports in general with a subspecialty in baseball. So I sought out the best. And at the time in the mid 90s, the best were probably Dr. James Andrews and Kevin Wilk and Glenn Fleissig and the researchers down at ASMI in Birmingham, Alabama. So I sought them out and I said, well, gee, if they're the best, I want to go learn from them. So I did everything I could to learn from them at that time because there wasn't like online courses and webinars and all that stuff. Like I did everything I could with their books and their journal articles. I think I still have it. I have it's probably mimeographed or something, but like a Xeroxed like binder this big of every baseball sports medicine article from, I think I even have the dates, like from 1982 to 1993 or something like that. Like I had these binders and stuff. So I sought out the best and I went to learn from the best. And over time I stayed down there and I became part of their group. So not only did I go and learn from the best, but then I became associated with the best for that. So when an opportunity came up, I put myself in that position to succeed. And I actually turned down some jobs in professional baseball prior to accepting the Red Sox because they weren't what was right for me at that time. So I didn't jump at that first opportunity. I was still waiting for exactly what I wanted. So I was fortunate. The Red Sox kind of found me, to be honest with you. I didn't apply. There wasn't like, you don't open up the newspaper and see an ad for head athletic trainer or physical therapist for the Red Sox. They kind of found me because they were looking for a rehab specialist that specialized in pitching. And because I established myself as part of that group, I was in that position to potentially be involved. So, the take home from just like how I kind of got there was that, everyone says they want to get into sports, but then nobody wants to put the time into it. I mean, I moved to Alabama. So if you're not from the States, I mean, Alabama is different than Boston. We'll just leave it at that, right? I enjoyed it. I had a blast. Birmingham is awesome. I really did have a good time, but moving from Boston to Alabama is kind of a big deal here in the States. So I made sacrifices, and that you got to think that was personal sacrifices, that was financial sacrifices. Right, I had to move to like a different part of the country because I wanted to put myself in that position to succeed. So everybody wants to do it; they just want to get that job, but it's about positioning yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and it sounds like you working hard as well. It sounds like you put in a lot of hours working hard, learning from the best, and probably spending a lot of time working with them as well.
Yeah, and I've been talking about that a lot lately because I feel like the current batch of like young clinicians and PT students we see, I don't want to say there's this sense of entitlement, and I don't want to get too controversial on your show, but I mean it's not that there's a sense of entitlement, but I'm having a hard time finding people that want to work their tails off. And that's really that's what I did. That's what Lenny Marino, my partner, did. That's what Dave Tilley, the new therapist we hired at Champion, that's why we brought him on board, is you got to work your tail off. I'm not smarter than you. I'll tell you that. I am not smarter than you, but I work 10 times harder than you. And that's all it comes down to. I just work harder. So everyone's like, wow, how are you successful? Or you got lucky, or like, wow, you just must be different. I'm like, no, I just work harder than you. That's it. And and I think people can do more than they realize they can if they just work harder.
I think you're right. I think you're right, and I think that's a very good message to talk about as well. So you worked really hard. You were sought out by the Red Sox because of the position that you put yourself in. So that wasn't you seeking them. They found you because you'd actually knew what you wanted and you'd worked hard to educate yourself into that position, I suppose. So what happened? You're not with the Red Sox now, are you? What happened after the Red Sox?
Yep. So after the Red Sox, I kind of, again, personal decisions with your life and stuff. I have two small kids right now, and so after the Red Sox, and the way baseball works, it's very if people move on. That's kind of the thing. So there was my regime, I guess, left Boston, and most of them went to Chicago to another organization, and I had an opportunity to go with them. I had some other opportunities, and I was this close to heading over there, but family decisions kind of came up. And a couple of kids and other things going on. I just said now's not the best time to move across country again and everything. So I everybody says like, wow, you got your dream job like when you're fairly young, that type of thing. Like, what do you want to do next? And it was funny. My answer is always quite simple. I just want a 4-day work week. That's it. So like I just want autonomy, because I just came from inside professional sports where I worked 7 days a week, about 14 hours a day minimum, even though I'm always working. I worked 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost all year. Maybe had a couple of months in the winter that were kind of quiet, but people don't get it. We work all day, every day.
So the point there being, if you want to get into sports, into working with a team, you need to be prepared to do those hours as well.
No doubt. And I'll share a good story that I don't know if I've actually shared in public before, where it's probably been one of the most impactful conversations I ever had. But during my interview process with the Red Sox, I spoke to one of their physicians, or I interviewed with one of the physicians, Dr. Brian Bisconi at UMass Medical. So good friend and, great guy, great surgeon in the Boston area. And he actually, his interview was weird. I didn't feel like he was interviewing me. I felt like he was more challenging why on earth I wanted this job. He's just, which is funny. He's like, are you sure you know what you're getting into? And he actually said to me, he said a very big line that I've still used to this date. He said, when it's all said and done, the only people that are going to remember what you've done in your career are your family. And he said that to me like in my interview, which I thought was it was very powerful for me. So he said that, and I was just like, you're still blindsided by the whole Red Sox concept. So I was just like, yeah, whatever, I want the job, But then down the road, you're like, oh yeah, he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
So for me now, it's about autonomy. I mean, I worked my tail off for the first half of my career, and I want the second half of my career to be a little bit more autonomous. But essentially, what I'm trying to do is the model that we've integrated with professional sports, with integrated medicine, with physical therapists, athletic trainers, strength coaches, nutritionists, chiropractor. I mean, all these people. The fact that we're not doing that with the general public just drives me crazy. Yeah. So, my goal was to create this model for the general public, and that's what we've started to do. So we built Champion PT and Performance in Boston, and essentially we're doing exactly what we did. So if you're a high school baseball player, you're getting the same care I gave the Red Sox. Your in between routine between your outings is exactly what the Red Sox got. So to me that's powerful, and it's actually kind of fun. Plus I have autonomy, so I can interview with you right now instead of do whatever somebody makes me do.
We like that you're not at the Red Sox anymore.
So that's kind of. It's powerful, so yeah.
Okay, so everything that you have learned, I suppose, through working with the team and the Red Sox and everything there, you're taking into your clinic and into working with the public in that sort of integrated healthcare environment, which is great. That sounds really good. And I imagine you're still seeing a lot of athletes as well that come to you.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's pretty much what I do now is just the athletes seek you out. Again, you have a special niche, so I think it's the same thing. How do you become successful in private practice or something like that? Yeah, you have to put yourself in that position to succeed. Like just like with the Red Sox, I didn't beg them for a job. I didn't just hound them with emails like trying to get a job. I put myself in the position where they wanted to seek out me. And it's like in the internet world, I guess that's called content marketing or whatever it may be. But like, I just established myself in that position rather than begged for the position. I put myself there. So, yeah, I mean, I got super lucky, right? Just the right place at the right time. But it is, you have to get lucky, but you also have to put yourself in that position.
Yeah, it sounds more like you put yourself in the position to be there at the right time, I think.
And that luck kicks in. But if
Yeah.
I didn't put myself in that position, then
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much luck I have.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen.
So there's a huge message coming out here that, sports physiotherapy, it's a competitive arena. There's a lot of people wanting to get into that. And I think the message that you're saying is that people need to work hard, and people need to educate themselves in the positions where they want to be before they get there, I suppose.
Correct. Yeah, seek out the best in what you want to do. So for me, it was specifically baseball, but maybe it's golf, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's gymnastics, maybe it's cricket or whatever you guys do over there. I'm just kidding. It doesn't really matter what it is. Seek out the leaders, the people that you can really go learn from. Hopefully you become one of them, right? Join that group and kind of work yourself up in that group. And then from there, you're much more powerful to be able to take that next step. But it takes sacrifice and it takes commitment. So you have to sacrifice time too. Like go, go volunteer. Just, if you can't financially handle that, then work 40 hours and then volunteer 40 more hours. And that's how you do it. But you integrate yourself into those groups, and you probably have to donate your time and your skill set to do that.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people find it quite hard to volunteer these days, I think. So it's good to hear you say that that's an important part of it.
Again, I don't understand why. I don't understand why they find it difficult other than they just don't want to. Again, it's the same concept. I get financially, if you can't take 3 months to go volunteer and do an internship, that's fine. Then you after work every night, go 4 hours and work in a training room at the local university or something like that. I mean, you have to do something. It's not going to match its own.
Cool. That's a good message. So let's just think. So we're educating ourselves, learning from the best. Is there any themes through the sort of what people should learn to be a good sports physiotherapist? Thinking of more sort of clinical knowledge now, are there any things in particular that you would recommend that people should educate themselves on or improve their knowledge of?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the standard stuff obviously applies. When it comes down to sports, again, I think that's where if you subspecialize in a specific sport, I think that's super helpful, because you have to know the unique demands of that sport so you can know what you need to do differently. And that, again, I think gives you some expertise in just that small domain. So I think you have to, subspecialize a little bit, and I think that's extremely helpful. I think the other thing that differs here, and I think I see, physio students that we deal with struggles with this sometimes, is in school they make you talk with all these big terminology and be very articulate with how intelligent you are to get through your practicals and stuff at school. I think you have to try to, and this goes for really any patient population, but with athletes, you have to be able to relate to them. You have to be able to get on the same page and communicate well and be able to break through that barrier with them. So if you're too too dorky, I guess would be like a way you could actually kind of say it here. So very informal interview here. Or if you're too on that side of the spectrum versus kind of like the athlete spectrum, you have to be able to kind of cross that gap with how you communicate and get what you need to get done with those people. So I think that's actually a big thing in sports. Is it's not just making sure that they understand how much you know. It's how much you can communicate and relate to them and get through to them and know that you're there for them to help them perform.
Yeah, and so I guess it helps if you are an athlete yourself,
yeah.
As in not a professional athlete, just an athletic person going out there and doing sport and understanding the sort of requirements and the demands upon the body of what sport actually does.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I think that helps. But I mean, a lot of us have physical challenges that don't make us the best athletes. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, right? I'm never going to be a professional athlete. And even, people that may have disabilities or something like that, I think you can still have that mentality and you can still be able to communicate well. Even if you're not physically an athlete, I think you can still do that. So I think that's a little bit different with sports. Like in sports, you have to think like if you hurt your knee, you're not happy, right? But like your livelihood might not be dependent on it. Where these guys like their livelihood is dependent on it, and they're very nervous, right? So not just like wow, my career could be over, but like wow, like I might be on the disabled list for 4 weeks, and some rookie from the minor leagues comes up and steals my spot and becomes better than me. So there's all of this like you have to really get on that wavelength with them that you understand their predicament, you understand that the goal is to help them succeed, and I just feel like it's a little bit more demanding than general orthopedic, that you have to be able to master that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. And so what about clinical knowledge? Any topical themes that you might recommend?
I think it goes to understanding that with, and actually I'll relate this back to a story then with my interview with the Red Sox. So during my interview process, kind of one of the moments where, I had this went well, one of the questions that I was being interviewed by a bunch of people, but Theo Epstein, which is the GM at the time of the Red Sox, he just said, he's like, all right, you've worked with a ton of injured baseball players. How are you going to make the transition to working with healthy baseball players? And I said, that's easy. Every time they pitch, they injure themselves, and I have 5 days to rehab them back for their next start. And I just saw him like,
Yeah, I bet.
I was just like, I nailed that. I'm like, I got this. So I was like, like, all right, that went well, and that just flowed out. But that's really how I think. So there's a difference when you're working in sports here. A lot of times you're working with healthy people, and you have to realize that the demands of that sport take you from your norm to a suboptimal, abnormal condition. So maybe that's tightness from imbalances. So like the act of throwing a baseball, your shoulder gets tight in certain directions, it gets weak in certain directions. My job is to keep them neutral, to keep them optimal, because every day they beat themselves down and I have to keep them up, right? So it's a little different than getting them way ahead. I'm just trying to keep their heads above water sometimes. So once you understand that, I think you just have to understand the unique needs of each sport, and that's the biggest thing clinical for me. There's nothing magical that I do clinical, right? There's no technique I know that you don't know. There's nothing I do better than you. It's how you put it together, and it's knowing when and where to do those techniques. So for me, I don't think it's something specific clinically that you have to be really good at. I think you just have to be able to know when and how to apply it to that specific athlete and sport, and I think that's pretty important. But clinically, I think you got to, if you, I know you want a clinical answer, so I'll give you something. So
You can see I'm chasing
for me, it's really understanding and being. It's really understanding how to integrate like manual therapy and exercise to enhance their movement patterns and make them optimal again. So I'd say if there's something clinical that you really wanted to learn and kind of work on, I would lean towards that, is get really good at your manual therapy skills, and assure that you're using them to enhance their movement patterns and making them move optimally. We're getting our world right now is getting really caught up in systems and complicated systems that don't apply to everybody, and we're getting really out there. We're really focusing on on the frosting and not on the cake. So we need to make sure you're really good at your basic manual therapy, corrective exercise skills, and get that cake good before we get fancy with how their diaphragm's moving and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess you've already mentioned movement analysis comes into it as well, doesn't it?
Of course, and again, there's general movement analysis. You have to understand how humans move, right, and that move well. But then it's specific to your athletic population. So again, just an example with baseball players. I mean, we have a difference in the way our arms rotate, right? I don't have any external on my left, but I have a ton on my right. If I don't know that, I look at that and I say, wow, one of these is screwed up, right? I don't know, this is too tight, this is too loose. But once you know that that's actually the norm, and if you don't have that, you're not successful. Then you understand it. So it's understanding general movement skills, but then also specific sport movement skills as well. And that's experience, but that's also, when you don't have the experience, that's why you surround yourself with the experts, and you get that experience. Otherwise, you got to figure it out yourself, and that could take years if you don't work with a lot of athletes.
And I think for the surrounding yourself with experts, I think it's easier these days because of the internet. We're able to do that online a lot easier. So for people that are overseas and want to surround themselves by experts who are the other side of the world, like they can join your Ask Mike Reinold show and, you know, join your inner circle and learn from you, for instance. So I think that's much easier these days with the internet. So if you can't move to the other side of the world, which is quite a big commitment, or you know, or join those experts in their clinics, then you can do that online. So that does make it easier these days, which is good. Definitely good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about basic skills for sports physiotherapists? Like, should they go on a first aid course?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think it depends on really what your role is going to be, right? So, in America here with the APTA, we have these clinical specialties. I don't know if you guys are doing those sorts of things there, but we have like a sport clinical specialist, and I am one. And it's funny, you know, the prep for that is essentially athletic training. You know, so it's they teach you the athletic training aspects of the domain. It's acute, immediate management of that. And in my mind, I'm super confused at really where to go with this here and this concept here, because I don't think anyone's going to hire a physical therapist to be an athletic trainer. You hire an athletic trainer to be an athletic trainer. So, you know, for me, I think I'd rather stick within my wheelhouse as a physical therapist now. So technically, I am both. Right, so that's a little different for me because I am technically both. But if you're a physical therapist and you're not an athletic trainer, then just learning first aid, I don't think that I would ever hire you to do first aid on an athlete, if that makes sense. I'd rather have an athletic trainer there or even an EMT to do that. So should you know that? Yeah, I mean, you should definitely know that. But I think with sports, it's about integrating the different domains and sticking in our wheelhouses, but together versus trying to do that. So is it nice to know that? Yeah, I think then you can have a much better conversation with the athletic training staff, and I think you can actually work better with them. But you know, I think it's about staying within your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think that is very good advice as well. I think it's a little bit different in different countries because you guys have athletic trainers and we don't. So I think a lot of physiotherapists over here and maybe in Australia or other sort of westernized nations, developed nations, the physiotherapists are the first line practitioner on the field.
Right.
So that might make it a little bit different. But I definitely agree with you that we shouldn't be trying to do everything. We should definitely be working more with other healthcare professionals and forming teams like we do in the hospitals and on the wards, have multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary teams. It's exactly the same in sports physiotherapy. So maybe one key thing that people should try and understand if they're wanting to get into sports physiotherapy is how the interdisciplinary team works within sports physiotherapy as well, and what everybody's skills are and how they can all come together to optimize the athletic performance.
Right, and that's, I mean, well said. I mean, that's one of the things I did with my time with the Red Sox. We went from a very small staff to the biggest staff in baseball, where we just, you know, my first year it was myself, a head athletic trainer, and a strength coach, and that was it. We had a physical therapist that stayed at home, didn't travel with us like that. I think, geez, my last year, I don't even know off the top of my head. There was 2 physical therapists, 3 athletic trainers, 2 massage therapists, a chiropractor, 2 strength coaches. You know, there's probably more I'm leaving off. If I forgot you, I apologize. But we grew from a little team to a huge team because that's what works best. And again, it's combining different worlds. It's saying, okay, if that's what the wards do in a hospital system and that's what's best for patient care, why aren't we doing that same thing? Why are we trying to force somebody to be something they're not?
Yeah, really good point. Now, I'm really aware that of your time today, so I've got one last question that I'm really interested in for you. Nutrition. Now, we all know that nutrition is really key for athletic performance. We don't get trained in nutrition as physiotherapists, and and like we're just talking about, we should work with nutritionalists to do this. But what's our role using nutrition as a physiotherapist?
Well, I think nutrition is important, and with nutrition, I would probably add supplementation into that as well. From the physio perspective, nutrition and supplementation are just as important for recovery as it is for performance enhancement. So there are things in the performance enhancement world that we do, like protein and creatine and things like that, amino acids. There's so many different aspects there. I think there's also a whole slew of things that we can do supplementation wise for recovery. But again, it's the same thing. We just kind of talked about the cake analogy here. That's the frosting, right?
Okay.
The supplements, frosting. Nutrition is your cake, right? So if I go to McDonald's and then, sorry McDonald's, if I go to a fast food restaurant, we'll wink, and I have some bad food, but then I have a protein shake afterwards, I'm probably not the healthiest person in the world in terms of my nutrition. So your nutrition is the cake, supplementation is your frosting in my mind. And for nutrition, you have to be able to, you have to think you have to feed your body right. So you have to feed your body right so that way you can perform better, but you can also recover faster. So for me, I think there's a huge role in nutrition for the physio world, because to be honest with you, the next wave of sports medicine isn't what can we do to make people bigger, faster, stronger. It's going to be what can we do to help people recover faster so that way they're always 100%. So in a competitive athletic season, again, whatever that season may be, you start off here and you just slowly go down over the course of the season. We have to be able to do that with our athletes in season. And I think that's the next big realm of performance, is just avoiding decrease in performance. So nutrition becomes a huge role in that.
Yeah, so it'd be really important for us to understand that a bit better and have at least have an understanding of that, which we don't seem to have much from our basic physiotherapy knowledge. Talking about the future, if nutrition's the future, what else is in the future of sports physiotherapy?
I think it's understanding recovery, and that's where, in sports, you've done a great job. Like, the international soccer teams are doing a fantastic job with sports science and really understanding and managing fatigue and allowing those types of things. That's integrating its way into the States here as well. And like basketball, they're doing a really good job with that, and it's starting to trickle in. I think the concepts of sports science that are very popular in soccer or football in your world, with that, don't necessarily apply to, say, for example, baseball. Maybe some of them do, but I think we're trying to apply too much of what worked in soccer to baseball, which makes no sense because they're two different capacities. But it's about the sports science of knowing I want all my athletes to be in peak shape at all times. So are they recovering? Are they sleeping? Are they hydrating? Are they having proper nutrition? Are they doing the right programs to ensure that they maintain their strength and everything over the course of the season? But more importantly, are we not running them into the ground? And I think that's what we're doing. And I think so it's all about now managing stress, managing fatigue to optimize performance. And that's the real world. So I guess that maybe you have an opening there. Maybe for those listening here, if you want to get in and you want to establish yourself as an expert or something, the sports science route is probably the way to go now and start to learn that. Because what we're doing is you have the sports scientists, you have the physios and the other people. It's the physio that gets sports science that's going to probably be pretty dang good in our systems down the road. Instead of just doing those two, when you understand those concepts and you apply that to your physio, I think that's going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a really interesting concept. I have been thinking about that an awful lot, the concept of, or the 4 pillars of health: sleep, stress, nutrition, exercise, activity. In the general population, the general patient population, we don't adhere to that, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about it perhaps being the future of sports physiotherapy, sports medicine as well. So I'm really interested to see where that goes.
I think what's going to happen, though, that's actually kind of pretty much kind of there already in sports now. It's just going to continue to get more intelligent. I think it's going to get better, and then that's going to trickle down to everybody else.
That's
because they're going to understand it. I mean, we're all wearing these Fitbits and all these things. Like, we're all very health conscious now. That's going to trickle down, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to be trying to optimize themselves. And I know I am. I tracked my sleep last night. I monitor how my sleep patterns are based on, did I have a glass of wine last night, or did I work out that day, or whatever it may be. So I'm looking at my sleep patterns. I'm looking at different things I can do to change my resting heart rate and stuff like that. It's about tweaking ourselves. So that's going to get to us in the general public. And I'm preparing a talk right now. We have a big seminar coming up at our facility at Champion, and my talk's on performance therapy, not physical therapy, but performance therapy, where it's just different play on words there a little bit.
Yep.
But what I talk about is in the States here, and I don't really know what it is around the world, but the American Dental Association back decades ago did a fantastic job with branding and marketing, and they've convinced us all that we absolutely need to get our teeth cleaned every 6 months. And if you think about that, that's I don't know how much science that's kind of founded from, but that's branding and marketing, and they did an amazing job with that. And we do that. We get our teeth cleaned twice a year, but we don't take care of our movement skills. We don't enhance our tissue quality and stuff like that. So that, to me, that's the way physio needs to go with the general orthopedic population. That's kind of what I started talking about in that upcoming talks. That's fresh on my mind. I was just working on that last night. So
now I'm wishing you had more time, because I would talk to you lots more about that.
Yeah, teaser, you'll have to go to the seminar.
So is this seminar going to be available online?
We just started talking to somebody to come film it, so I think we're going to. So we were kind of 50-50 on whether or not we want to film our seminars, but I just have such a broad reach now around the world that people can't come to Boston for a live seminar. That's actually why I don't do that much live stuff anymore. I mean, doing a live seminar for 70 people or whatever is fantastic, but heck, we can do it for thousands online. So we probably will, working on it, but we'll get there.
Well, I look forward to that. Now, I'm very respectful of your time. I know you're busy today, so it's been really, really good to talk to you. I think that's a really great insight into sports physiotherapy for anyone that's thinking of getting into that. Is there any other messages that you wanted to say to everyone before we finish today, or are you happy with what we talked about?
I like that, nice and open-ended. No, I mean, just to summarize, it's you gotta work your tail off. If you're trying to get to that job that is just so few people get, you have to work your tail off and put yourself in the best position to succeed. There's really no other way. So if you don't have that mindset, it's going to be a challenge, and that's the biggest thing that you can do is you don't have to be the most skillful person. You have to put yourself in that position to succeed. I'm sure there are many people that are more skillful physios than I am, but I just got luckier than they did because I put myself in that position to get lucky. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Everybody wants to know how to get it, but they don't want to put the time in to get it.
Yeah. So at the risk of you receiving hundreds of emails of people wanting to come and immerse themselves in your knowledge, we can find you at mikereinold.com, and you're on Twitter. Remind me of your Twitter handle.
Yep, just same thing. I'm easy to find. Just at Mike Reinold, and really the website's the hub. I mean, you can get to our new podcast. You can get to all our products. We just released a new online course for the knee. So I know you guys are big on the online courses. We got a bunch of online programs that we do. So just you can kind of go from there. Check out my inner circle, those things. I mean, we have a bunch of different things, but MikeReinold.com is just I'm easy to find.
Great. All right, well, thanks very much, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, no, thanks again for having me, and appreciate it. Thanks for all you guys for listening.